Hey Zach, how's it going? Okay, so here it goes. My first post totally devoted to a topic about writing. Yesterday was my last day of classes, so things are officially wrapping up around here. And what better time than the end of the school year to talk about beginnings? That's what I want to talk about right now. Beginnings, openings, the very start of your story. Before I get into that though, let me catch people up to speed about what we're doing. This is for all of you out there besides Zach who have no idea what Zach and I are up to. Long story short, Zach and I are currently working on writing a franchise of stories, novel-length books, if you will, based around a central character whose name is John Knight. No, he's not named after me. That's a story for another time. He honestly isn't, but that's besides the point. The John Knight stories, novels, whatever you want to call them at the moment, are essentially our take on the international espionage spy thriller genre. We have 10 stories in line. Where we are right now, I am writing actually a story sort of outside of the mainstream. It's an origin story for one of our characters. Currently, Zach is working on John Knight's origin story, which is the first story of the John Knight series proper. I'm currently in the rough draft stage of the origin story that I am writing. Zach, I know you have actually just started your first draft after your rough draft of John Knight's origin story, and you and I both have just recently finished outlining what will be the second book in the John Knight sequence, which means that now the only thing that we have left is to start writing our rough draft for that. So that's essentially all you need to know for right now. But this is what we have going on. We are just beginning a first draft of one of the stories, and we are about to begin our rough draft of another story, which means that the opening of a story is sort of something on our mind right now. Obviously, you want the entire book to be great from start to finish, but the opening is probably one of the most important parts to get right. Consequently, it's also one of the hardest parts to get just right. You've heard the term hook, I'm sure, a lot. You want to grab your reader and make sure that they don't let go until at least page 5. I mean, I don't know about you, but I personally have had books where I've put the book down after page 5 and not until later gone back and reread it. And then I find out it's actually a pretty good book and I shouldn't have put it down in the first place. But the book shouldn't have lost me to begin with. Something went wrong in the first 5 pages that told me that this book might not be worth it. And that's the number one question you have to have in consideration when writing the opening of a story. It's the number one question that readers are going to be asking. Is this book worth my time? Reading a book is an ordeal. It's a time commitment. And if a reader knows by page 5 that they don't think it's going to be worth their time, then they're going to put it down. I don't really have anything against soft openings. If it's well written enough and it does its job, then hey, good for you. I do the same thing all the time. The origin story I'm writing at the moment has a very soft opening, and I'm afraid that I might be losing my readers because I'm relying on nothing but my prose to keep them interested. You never want to force something. If your story doesn't demand a slam bang opening, then that's okay. Believe it or not, some stories aren't suited to begin with a gunfight or a car chase or an explosion. Some books need to start out soft. And that's okay. By no means should you change the way that your book is so that you can have an exciting entrance. But that's not exactly the point. Your story should never be anything other than what it needs to be the most successful, to tell the story the best way possible. And as we really begin to delve into topics about writing, there's one thing I want to make really clear. No matter what suggestions we throw back and forth, you should never let some semblance of a rule dictate your story for you. That being said, the beginning of the story is where the reader is most likely to put down the book and not pick it up again. So even if it's not exciting, it must still be interesting. It must still answer the question, is this book worth my time? Marley was as dead as a doornail. That's the opening line to A Christmas Carol, a book I have not read since 6th grade. It just made that much of an impact on me that I haven't forgotten the very opening line since then. Nothing exciting happens after that. It's a Christmas story for crying out loud. There are no explosions, car chases, nothing. They talk about this dead guy, and then Scrooge goes and walks through the wintry streets for a little bit. Now, the last time I read what you've done of the first draft, there was only a page or two, so granted, it didn't really have time to get rolling. But just while we're on the topic of beginning stories, I will just give a couple of general points. First of all, make sure that your entrance gives questions that the reader wants to have answered. And I'm not talking about that question, why should I keep reading this book? I'm talking about plot things, character things. To use probably one of the most basic and boring hypotheticals, if you begin your book with a character walking down the street, you need to make sure that your readers are asking themselves, where is he coming from? Where is he going? Why is he going there? And what's in it for me when he gets there? Just another point about opening stories. I was talking earlier about how my origin story starts with a pretty soft opening, but I was really falling back on my prose to carry the reader through it. You obviously want your whole story to be quality, but I think that if you don't have an exciting opening, that the beginning of the story is the number one place to dump all of your poetic language. Just my last post, I was talking about trying to find a balance between poetry and prose. This would be a situation in which you want to be more poetic than prosaic. So it comes down to a few different things. One, if you have an exciting opening, good. Make sure that that exciting opening gets the readers excited and wanting more. B, if you don't have an exciting opening per se, make sure that the language is at least interesting. So the aesthetic experience of the words themselves keeps the readers reading. And the third and final option being if you have an exciting and well written opening, then good for you. I don't have too much more to say about this matter at the moment, although I'm sure if you gave me a few days, I could think of something else to say. I do want to say this, though. To segue into talking about beginnings, I mentioned how my classes just ended yesterday. Well, there's also the flip side of that coin. Summer's just about to begin, and that also makes it appropriate to talk about beginnings. Either way, my point is that summer is just about to begin. I come home next Wednesday. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait, and I fully intend to make this the best summer ever.